We'll go to 39 now. Anywhere you turn to in Sri Caitanya Caritamrita, you get the most extraordinary taste. Bhagavad Gita is the preliminary study introducing you to Krishna. Krishna talks about unto me, Mam. But he doesn't describe himself so much in Bhagavad Gita. There's the glorious exposition of the universal form in chapter 11. But Krishna doesn't talk about his original personal beauty so in Bhagavad Gita. But then in Bhagavatam, you're introduced to the name, form, qualities, and pastimes. And in Sri Caitanya Caritamrita, you're introduced to how to love Krishna. Caitanya Caritamrita assumes you already understand that Krishna has name, form, qualities, and pastimes. That's beyond dispute. So how to love Krishna? Who can teach that better than Krishna himself? So he comes as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and demonstrates the perfection of loving Krishna. And as we'll find out, the peak of loving Krishna is not meeting Krishna, it's separation from Krishna. This may be a little hard for you to understand, but by repeated hearing, while engaged in devotional service, the greatest mystery of spiritual life can be understood by you. So we'll go to text 39. Dvarashvatsa Shekarahila Nilachale Prema Vasta Shakaila Ashvadanchole Dvarashvatsa Shekarahila Nilachale Prema Vasta Shakaila Ashvadanchale Dvarashvatsa Shesharahila Nilachale Prema Vasta Shakaila Ashvadanchale Dvarasha 12 Vatsar years Shesha balance Rahila remained Nilachale at Jagannatha Puri Prema Vasta a state of ecstasy Shakaila instructed everyone Asvadanachale under the plea of tasting it himself. Translation. For the remaining 12 years, he stayed in Jagannatha Puri. He taught everyone how to taste the transcendental mellow ecstasy of love of Krishna by tasting it himself. Purport. A person who is advanced in Krishna consciousness always feels separation from Krishna, because such a feeling of separation excels the feeling of meeting Krishna. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in his last 12 years of existence within this world at Jagannatha Puri, taught the people of the world how, with a feeling of separation, one can develop his dormant love of Krishna. Such feelings of separation or meeting with Krishna are different stages of love of Godhead. These feelings develop in time when a person seriously engages in devotional service. The highest stage is called Prema Bhakti, but this stage is is attained by executing sadhana bhakti. One should not try to elevate himself artificially to the stage of prema bhakti without seriously following the regular principles of sadhana bhakti. Prema bhakti is the stage of relishing, whereas sadhana bhakti is the stage of improving in devotional service. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu taught this cult of devotional service in full detail by practical application in his own life. It is said, therefore, apani achari bhakti shikaimu sabare. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna himself, and in the role of a Krishna Bhakta, a devotee of Krishna, he instructed the entire world how one can execute devotional service and thus go back home, back to Godhead in due course of time. Translation again. For the remaining 12 years, he stayed in Jagannath Puri. He taught everyone how to taste the transcendental mellow ecstasy of love of Krishna by tasting it himself. Om Agana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militang Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. You're getting a synopsis of the extent of Lord Chaitanya's appearance in this world. Of course, it's not that Krishna or Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu go in and out of existence. Just like the sun, sometimes the sun is present visibly, and sometimes it's not visible. Like now, you don't see the sun itself, but you see indirect indications that the sun is there. There's light, there's warmth. So similarly, in Bhagavad Gita, you are taught to see the symptoms of Krishna's presence. Rasaham Apsukontaya, he says, I'm the taste of water. Prabhashmi Shashi Suryo, I'm the light of the sun and the moon. This is not just poetry, by the way. These are ways you can preliminarily perceive the presence of Krishna. So if you can't do what's said in Bhagavad Gita, how then can we progress to more intimate, more intense ways of perceiving Krishna's presence? And the culmination of those more intense, intimate ways of perceiving Krishna's presence, the culmination is love of Krishna in separation. In the bodily conception of life, we think the highest is meeting up with the beloved. And we think separation is miserable. We're thinking always of unions, meeting, coming together, and then there can be enjoyment. But this material world is the perverted reflection of the spiritual world. Everything's upside down. The peak of pure bhakti is feeling separation from Krishna. Just like in the Adi-lila section of the Bhagavatam, Krishna disappears from the gopis, and they practically become mad in feelings of separation, imitating Krishna's pastimes, crying out to Krishna. Finally, they go to the bank of the Yamuna where they had last met Krishna, hoping that that geographic location will somehow or other bring Krishna back to them. And yes, Krishna does appear. When their feelings of separation reach the peak, Krishna appears. So this might sound cruel to you. It's nothing that we recommend you try in your own grihastha relationship. You get thrown out of the house. But that's the difference between the bodily conception of life and pure spiritual life. So even when the gopis reunited with Krishna, they sat down and they gave him a bit of a talking to. And Krishna defended himself, or you could say he educated them in the principles of, the highest principles of ecstatic love. He told them straight out, when you were going mad in separation, feeling because I disappeared, actually I was from a hidden vantage point watching you go through the transcendental agony of separation, the madness of separation. I was watching from an unseen, you couldn't see, but I was watching you. So you might think this is very cruel. Not only had Krishna disappeared from them, but he was watching what they were going through, what they were undergoing in separation from him. The agony of separation. He was watching that. So with our material conditioning, we think this is not right. Krishna should immediately fulfill their desires, and of course we're thinking Krishna should immediately fulfill our desires. But Krishna explains his modus operandi. He says, I know the psychology. Just like what happens when someone's been poor all their life and they suddenly get a lot of money. It can happen if they're gambling, playing the lottery. They win millions of dollars, but then suddenly they lose it all. What's the psychology? Krishna explained. They didn't have it, they were poor, they had it, they were super rich and lost it all. They never stopped thinking about the wealth that they lost. He said, similarly, I give myself to you, I disappear, and then you never stop thinking of me. You undergo the peak of ecstasy and separation. So Krishna is basically telling them, I wanted to give you the highest experience. That's why I left. Again, I don't recommend you try this in your earthly relationships. But Rasa-lila, of course, is not about earthly relationships. It's demonstrating the peak of bhakti. And Lord Caitanya is Krishna coming to taste that peak, because he can't do it as Krishna. So then you say, is there something that Krishna can't do? Yes, he can't taste what it's like to love himself. He can't taste his own sweetness. He can't experience, he can't be what it's like to be in the position of his most beloved. But he can do that as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Krishna takes the position of Srimati Radharani, takes her emotions, takes her complexion. And in that way, he experiences the peak intensity, the peak ecstasy of love of himself. This is inconceivable for us. So Caitanya Caritamrita is for those who have sufficiently understood Bhagavatam. They're beyond all impersonalism, and they're ready to explore the greatest mysteries of spiritual life. Having it demonstrated, the greatest mystery is demonstrated to you by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. How do you taste what it's like to love yourself? I often point out, perhaps you've heard me give the example, there was one very famous Hollywood actor. He ended up in an accident on stage while filming, I believe, or fell off a horse and was paralyzed. But in his prime, before material nature did him in, he was telling the media about, in other words, he was speaking about his own handsomeness. He said, "When I look in the mirror, I think I would date myself." So it shows you, even in the tiny conditioned soul, bewildered, has this desire to, what's it like to be attracted to me? Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is demonstrating the peak intensity of love of Krishna, and that means separation. So you just heard a quick chronology of Lord Chaitanya's appearance in this world, which was for the total of 48 years. The first 24 years were his householder pastimes, Adi-lila. The second 24 years were his sannyas pastimes. And 6 of those 24 years, the second half, 6 were spent in his traveling all over India, Bengal, Vrindavan, South India. And then 18 of those years, of the 24 years, were spent concentrated in Jagannath Puri. Out of those 18 years of concentration in Jagannath Puri, 6 were public. Mahaprabhu was always engaged in Harinam Sankirtan. He would dance in 3 places: in the Jagannath Puri temple, on the shore of the ocean, and at the house of Kashi Mishra, where he stayed. So 6 of those years were public. 6 of those 18 years concentrated in Jagannath Puri were public. Harinam parties. The remaining 12 years were confidential. His pastimes of transcendental madness in the association, especially of Srup Damodar and Ramananda Roy. In those final 12 years before his disappearance, he would seem to be delirious, making mistakes, erroneous perception. Just like Chatakaparva, he saw the sand dune on the beach in Jagannath Puri and thought, this is Govardhan Hill, and began running toward it. So you might say, well, how can, if Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, how can he make mistakes? But you see, the principle in the spiritual world is that love is the highest. What we talk about in the material world and never, never experience, that ideal is reality at the top of the spiritual world. So it's not, so you might say Lord Chaitanya is running toward the sand dune, mistaking it as Govardhan Hill, is an error of material calculation. No. Just like sometimes in Goloka Vrindavan, sometimes in Krishna Lila, Krishna becomes so overwhelmed by attraction for his beloved that he starts milking a bull instead of a cow. You say, what is this? How can he make mistakes? He's a Supreme Personality of Godhead. But love is the highest. There's no mistake about that. So how are mundane people to understand this? They speak of On the mundane plane, they speak of, I was blinded by love. Love makes me do foolish things. Sit around by a phone that never rings. Hoping, longing. That is so dry and so faulty compared to Krishna's errors in transcendental love. So when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu apparently is lost in delirium, he's demonstrating a principle that we'd love to see in the material world, but you'll never see it in the material world. Love is the highest. Love is beyond all conceptions of right or wrong. Mundane scholars who study the mundane history around the time of Lord Caitanya, you'll find Lord Caitanya and his associates, they are historical persons. They're there in the historical record, but their ecstasy of love of Krishna is not there, of course. No mundane historian can understand that. I read one British historian, prominent, who was giving an account of Jagannath Puri and Lord Caitanya. And he was giving a historical account. There was this great, fantastic social reformer, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is knocking down all social barriers, all caste distinctions. He was doing great. And all of a sudden, he lost it. He went mad. And that was the end of his brilliant social reformer career. The mundane historians can't understand it. What compares to that? It's like Srikanta Sain Prabhu is a lawyer, and then suddenly he abandons his lawyer career and just spends his days and nights rolling in the dust of New Govardhana. According to his workmates, his corporate workmates or his bankmates, the guy went mad. I think I've explained to you before about Prabhupada teaching George Harrison about love of Krishna and separation. This is how brilliant a teacher is Srila Prabhupada. He's able to impart the highest, most esoteric bhakti realities to someone who is not fully practicing, but was very favorable and offered a lot of devotional service. So, Prabhupada explained to him in London that he said, you see the sun in the sky. Of course, that's a rare occurrence in London, but you see the sun in the sky, and then suddenly the sun disappears. What do you feel? And the devotees in the room answered, you feel cold. Sounds right, yes. Prabhupada said, no, you feel the absence of the sun. You feel separation from the sun. And George got it. Because everyone in the room was thinking, when the sun disappears behind a cloud, suddenly you feel cooler, you feel colder. That's it. But no, you're actually feeling separation from the sun. So George went on to put that concept in his music. So I was explaining at our festival in New Zealand how I was as a young Sankirtan devotee book distributor. I was at a big concert hall arena, 20,000 people gathered there for a George Harrison and Ravi Shankar concert. They were traveling, touring together. And so, naturally, the book distributors were there, outside the arena, then inside the arena. And so we had brought our boxes of Krishna books into the arena. We had them stashed, and we were going up and down the aisles, because you couldn't go through the rows because people are sitting too close together, but we did the people on the aisles during the concert. After first doing the bathrooms. I hadn't explained that before, the bathrooms. These big concert arenas they're actually sports arenas. 20,000 people they hold. They have these huge bathrooms. I don't know what's the biggest bathroom you've ever seen. There's 10 stalls for toilets, 10 urinals, 10 sinks. So before the concert starts, everyone is heading to the bathrooms. They don't want to go to the bathroom during the concert. They don't want to miss a moment of what they paid so much money for. So the book distributors would wait outside, right outside the door to the men's bathroom. And so as these hordes of people are going through the door, excuse me, he'd stop them and offer them a Krishna book. And then we were getting really enthusiastic. So we go inside the bathroom, and as the men were approaching the urinals, excuse me, have you seen one of these? Everyone at the concert gets one. And then the concert would start, and we would go up and down the aisles, approaching the people who sat at the edge of the rows. And then George announces, and now we're going to sing a song. I miss you, Lord Krishna, where are you? So I raced to where we had our Krishna books stashed and loaded up my arms with 50 Krishna books. As soon as he finished the song, I yelled out, Krishna book, Krishna book. 100 people rushed toward me with money in their hands, pressing me against the wall, the inside wall of the arena, with pushing money on me, and in 3 minutes, all 50 books were gone. So that's the result of Prabhupada's ability to communicate to George Harrison the most esoteric concept. And this is what Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is demonstrating. How to love Krishna in separation, and this is the goal we're aiming at. Our bhakti should be progressive. As the purport is explaining, we start with sadhana bhakti with the intent that we want to deepen our spiritual life. We need to be progressive in our bhakti. Bhakti is not simply about following the regular principles and chanting 16 rounds, although it would be great if everyone would do that. Our senses are so wild, our mind is so uncontrolled, we're faulty in following our initiation vows, but still, we should keep in mind that bhakti is progressive when performed properly. And proper performance of sadhana bhakti, in particular, is meant to develop attraction for Krishna. And therefore, as you become more progressive in your serious application of bhakti, Caitanya Caritamrita becomes more and more dear to you, because Lord Caitanya in Caitanya Caritamrita is demonstrating how to love Krishna perfectly. Even amongst devotees of Krishna, other sampradayas, they don't have this realization of love of Krishna and separation. This is the unique gift that Lord Caitanya is giving. That's the unique expression of the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. It's more personal, it's more intimate. Others think meeting Krishna, that's the ultimate. Thank you, if you could close that. But let's go back to Lord Chaitanya's childhood. Even before his childhood, what was he doing? By his very appearance on Gaura Purnima, he's already, by this technique, that technique, getting people to chant Hare Krishna. So he appears during a lunar eclipse when everyone will be in the Ganga chanting Hare Krishna. So even before his appearance, he's arranging for the mass distribution of the holy name. And then, as a child, he received the name Gaurahari. His childhood name is Nimai, born under a nim tree, but he was also called Gaurahari because the ladies assisting Sachi Devi, Lord Chaitanya's mother, noted that he would only stop crying when they chanted Hare Krishna. So therefore they said, your name is Gaurahari. In this way, even as an infant, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is spreading the holy name. But there was one time he wouldn't stop crying, even though they were chanting. What was that occasion? You see, he had learned to write just by looking at all the letters once. He had learned to write perfectly as an infant. And he would spend all day just writing the names of Krishna, Murari, Govinda, Gopal. After just looking at letters once. Of course, as a Supreme Personality God, he doesn't even need to do that. Look at letters once and then spend all day writing the names of Krishna. Sometimes he would see a bird flying in the sky. This is infant Nimai. And he would throw a temper tantrum. I want it, I want it, I want it. Give it to me, I want the bird. And he would thrash about on the ground. Then he would look and see the luminaries in the sky, the moon, the stars. Again, a temper tantrum. I want it, I want it, I want the moon, I want the stars. Usually, by the chanting happening around him, he would stop. What was he demonstrating by these temper tantrums? Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains, Mahaprabhu is demonstrating the futility of material desires and how there's no solution to material desires except chanting Hare Krishna. So therefore, I want. He's showing this is what it's like to have material desires. And they can only be resolved by chanting Hare Krishna. So when the ladies would start chanting Hare Krishna, his temper tantrum would end. In other words, I'm showing you what the solution to all material problems is. But as I said, there was one time that he didn't stop crying when they were chanting. And so the ladies were totally bewildered. And baby Nimai told them, as he lay on the ground, thrashing about, refusing to get up, he said, if you want to save my life, here's what you have to do. Nearby is the home of Jagadish and Hiranya Pandit. They, on this day of Ekadasi, have just made an offering of grains to their deities. Right now, they've just done that. Go there and get the grains and feed them to me. So Mother Sachi was, this is not supported by tradition. This is not supported by the Shastra. But Nimai said, this is the only way that I can be pacified. This is the only way, indeed, that my life can be saved. I want those grains. Get them, offer them to me. So immediately some persons left for the nearby home of Jagadish and his brother Hiranya. And what's the wonder about all this? The brothers immediately understood. They're actually from Krishna Lila. They understood that something inconceivable is going on. How does this little infant know today is Ekadasi? That's number one. Number two, how did he know that right at this moment we are making a big grain offering to the deities? Because the deities don't follow restrictions on Ekadasi. The Ekadasi restrictions are for devotees. But how did Nimai, little Nimai, the infant, know that we were offering grains to the deity? But because they're eternal associates in Krishna Lila and in Gaura Lila, they understood. This is our Gopal. We have our Gopal deity at home, but Gopal himself, as Nimai, is asking for the offering. They understood. Aha. How did he know it's Ekadasi? How did he know we're offering grains? Making a big grain offering right now at this very moment to the deities? This is Gopal asking. So they immediately sent the offering over to Nimai, who ate it, and then everything was fine. Another point, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says this Leela shows, is that if the love of the devotee is so great, even from a distance, the Supreme Personality Godhead, even they didn't offer to Nimai the grains, they offered to their Gopal deity, but Nimai, as the Supreme Personality Godhead, from afar, so to speak, I want that offering because of their devotion. How else did Lord Chaitanya spread the chanting of Hare Krishna? He became a teacher, Nimai Pandit, teacher of Sanskrit, but he would only teach Sanskrit in a way that you ended up chanting Hare Krishna. And he would also, as a young Pandit, he would lead Harinam parties throughout Navadvip, the town of Navadvip. So in this way, he's always inventing some technique to get everyone to chant Hare Krishna. Whether as a baby crying, or even before the babies, even before Nimai's appearance, everyone's in the Ganga chanting Hare Krishna. As a youthful Pandit teaching Sanskrit by chanting Hare Krishna. Harinam parties throughout the town of Navadvip chanting Hare Krishna. So you heard in one purport an important point. You might say, how is it that this chanting by Nimai Pandit in the town of Navadvip affects the whole universe? So Srila Prabhupada explains something very beautiful. He said, just like Krishna can set the whole cosmic manifestation in motion, similarly Mahaprabhu, by chanting in Navadvip, can set into motion the whole Sankirtan movement, which will gradually cover the whole world and then the whole universe. You may recall how during Lord Chaitanya's tour of South India, demigods would come disguised as human beings to get his darshan. residents of other planets would come. So that Mahaprabhu's Sankirtan mission is extraterrestrial. It's not just an Indian affair. It's a cosmic affair. Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma would visit Mahaprabhu, discuss with him in solitary places. The demigods, as we said, would disguise themselves as human beings. So do we truly understand the implications and extent of what we're dealing with by chanting Hare Krishna? So in this way, Caitanya Caritamrita expands your horizons on earth and beyond. And as the Sankirtan mission spreads all over the globe and then extends to all over the universe, this reality, this most ecstatic reality of love of Krishna and separation is also spread. One thing we should always keep in mind is that Krishna as Lord Chaitanya is not the enjoyer. There are heterodox or deviant groups who want to make Lord Chaitanya the enjoyer of the gopis, which is forbidden. He's Krishna in the role of Krishna's devotee, Krishna's servant, Krishna's lover. So although Krishna-lila and Gaur-lila are so correlated together, there's still a distinction. So as I often point out, and we can never repeat it enough, both Lord Chaitanya and Krishna are Swayam Bhagavan. It's not that Lord Chaitanya is an avatar. He's avatari, the source of all avatars, just like Krishna. Both are simultaneous as the original personality of Godhead. So when Krishna wants to taste love in separation, he appears as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wants to be the supreme enjoyer, he doesn't do it as Mahaprabhu, he appears as Krishna. So in that way, the two are interrelated so extraordinarily, inconceivably. So we should know where our bhakti should be headed. Gradually, the goal should be achieved. As the purport ends, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna himself, and in the role of a Krishna Bhakta, a devotee of Krishna, he instructed the entire world how one can execute devotional service and thus go back home, back to Godhead in due course of time. So how long is the due course of time? Are we on the finish our business in one lifetime program? Or are we on the slow train? It's up to the individual. The acharyas, especially Srila Prabhupada, are very adamant that you can do it in this lifetime. Still, Krishna is so merciful that just a little effort will be your eternal credit. And you read in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, the fate of the unsuccessful yogi. Unsuccessful means you didn't finish your affairs in this lifetime. Suchinam Srimatam Gehe Yoga Brashta Bhajayate. You take birth in a very pious family, a very wealthy family, and rarely, the rarest birth is to be born in the family of transcendentalists. So you can't lose in one sense. But at the same time, we're advised to not stick around in this material world. gradually you'll find out that material existence is not just the good days, but it's a disastrous condition. So we want to go back to Godhead, and that means developing our progressive bhakti. Hare Krishna. Any questions?
I was just wondering, why is it Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu decided to reside for those last 18 years in Jagannath Puri instead of in Vrindavan? Was it to appease Mother Sachi, or were there other reasons for that?
One was to appease Mother Sachi. Another is that that's what Jagannath Puri is for feeling separation from Krishna. It's the place Lord Chaitanya chose to demonstrate such feelings. When he would see Lord Jagannath, in his deepest ecstasy, he's seeing Brajendra Nandana, Krishna, the son of Maharaj Nanda. So this is the madness of love, the perfection of love. So Jagannath Puri is a place for feeling separation from Krishna for the followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Who want to bring Krishna back to Vrindavan. So there's the opulence of the Jagannath Puri temple, but those following in the footsteps of Lord Chaitanya want Krishna not in Dwarka, they want him in Vrindavan. So that's why you have the Rath Yatra, bringing Krishna as Jagannath, or Jagannath as Krishna, from Dwarka to Gunjita Mandir, which is Vrindavan. So this ecstasy of bringing Krishna, beckoning him, come back from Dwarka. Have you forgotten Vrindavan? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is demonstrating this in Jagannath Puri. Yes.
Just a question about the Panchatattva mantra. I know it says Gaura Bhakta, we say Gaura Bhakta Vrinda at the end, but I've always wondered if so much of Mahaprabhu's later and very confidential pastimes are with Swarup Damodar and Ramananda Rai. How come we don't mention them? They just seem to be very important.
Very intimate associates. If you can't get the mercy of the Panchatattva, you'll never understand Ramananda Roy and Swarup Damodar's role. They're intimate associates. Sometimes Lord Chaitanya would cry in feelings of separation with his arm around Swarup Damodar's neck. So just like you have your friends and then you have your confidential friends. Same with Krishna, same with Lord Chaitanya. Actually, the Panchatattva mantra is more powerful than the Hare Krishna mantra, but Lord Chaitanya told us to chant Hare Krishna. In other words, you can't approach Krishna effectively in the age of Kali without going through the Panchatattva. For understanding the deepest depths of Mahaprabhu's ecstasy and separation, then you start thinking about Sri Damodar and Ramananda Roy. And their intimate personalities in Krishna Lila. Lalita, Vishaka, and then other esoteric combinations, because spiritual personalities can combine. Makes no sense materially. But actually, what does make sense materially? Anything else? All right, thank you very much. Hare Krishna.